Hello and welcome to Weekly Fix. I'm your host Zane. We're joined with my co-host here, Jacob, and we have a continuation of the Acolyte review series. We also have some Deadpool news that we're going to talk about. That seems to be that Jacob is more correct than me on some numbers that we predicted earlier, but that will be seen in the future. Um, but first, we always want to check in on Jacob, see how he's doing. Jacob, how was your week?
My week was good. Got back in the swing of things after we came down and visited you last week. Going back to work on Mondays is never fun, but now that I've got a actually, I'm off on Wednesday due to Juneteenth, so that was a little surprise to me because I actually didn't realize we were off. So that was nice news to start off my week with. So I can't complain there. But I'm surprised. We're doing the podcast here on Monday, and Zane actually just got done traveling, so I'm shocked he is not just wore out. Zane, how was your trip?
Oh man, it was significantly even better than I thought. I thought it was going to be a good trip, but those quick turnaround trips where you drive up, have a quick weekend, and then drive back, it always seems a little bit more taxing than it is rewarding. But this one was really really good. We had a great visit with family. We took our daughter and son to Tweetsy Railroad in North Carolina, which is just like a train themed amusement park, and Charlie had a blast. Um, if it was nothing more than for how much she enjoyed that day, it was definitely worth it. And then she got to enjoy it with her cousins, and it was just a really, really great time. So, yeah, traffic coming back today sucked. And I really do hate 95. If anyone's listening that's responsible for 95 in South Carolina, you have the worst road that is imaginable. It's awful. Fix the road. It's horrible. It's insane. But yeah, other than that, it was great.
Well, I figured, traveling back the day after Father's Day, which I don't think Father's Day is really like a travel heavy day, but obviously there's going to be more people on the road than probably normal. So I was definitely interested to see if you guys ran into any bad traffic or not.
Just some morons who decided to have a wreck. Other than that, it really wasn't terrible. It was congested and heavier. We usually travel at night. We like to leave around 9 p.m. generally, and just drive through the night. But for a weekend trip, it didn't really seem profitable to do that. It seemed like it would wipe more days than it was worth, but that's all right. Um, I can deal with a little bit of traffic for the ability to travel and to go fun places. I can bear with people not knowing how to drive.
Yeah, it's one of those things. If you want to enjoy some time in a different area, you just might have to deal with some days. So I'm glad you guys had a good trip.
Yeah, it was great, and I'm glad you were able to reset and you found out that you have Juneteenth off, which is a really fun time now that we get to celebrate the emancipation. In Texas, they're the final state to do it in our country, so that's a good addition to our federal holiday calendar. And I actually also get it off, so I'm excited about that. But we're a little late to the party. This is going to be coming out the day that episode 4 of Acolyte drops. And season episode 3 was very controversial. We talked last week about how many 1-star reviews it had, how poor the reception of Acolyte had been, la di da. Well, now it seems to be exponentially worse. That 13,000 1-stars went to 28,000 1-stars. And if you haven't watched it, go ahead and click the next chapter, because we're going to jump right into full spoilers. This is just an episode 3 review. So if you haven't seen it, then probably should just go watch it, or just jump to the next part of it. We already kind of gave our spoiler free review, and we'll give a full season spoiler free review at the end. But for this, it's going to be full spoilers. So Jacob, we talked a little bit about this already, and a little bit at length, but not entirely. We kind of seem split on this. What did you think of the episode?
Well, I think I want you to go first on your explanation for what you thought of the episode, because you have a much stronger opinion on the episode than I did. So I want to hear what you have to say first before we get into my thoughts on the whole ordeal, because I'm not really that upset by what we got. I know I'm definitely probably in the minority right now, but I'm just not. So I'm definitely interested to see what you really had your problems with, because I know you did have a lot of issues with it.
So one of the reasons that I'm upset is why were we all excited to see the Acolyte? Like, what was the excitement that brought to the table?
I think overall, just getting to experience, a different timeline, something we hadn't seen before, getting to experience a different form of the Jedi and the path that they're on currently. I know for me, that's what I was excited about.
Yes, it was for me. It was seeing the Jedi in the High Republic era at the height of their greatness. Because we'd already seen the collapse. We had seen there be no Jedi's. We had seen them start to fall away, and I was excited to see Jedi at their full strength and get to actually see like what the Jedi were supposed to be before they kind of took a bad turn. And immediately in episode 3, we get to see that they don't the writers of the show do not like Jedi. They don't they thought how they were shown in previous um I guess works of art that it wasn't quite they didn't understand it. They didn't get it. They didn't think they were good in that. And they don't necessarily think they're good because they didn't write them as good. You can write someone as good and still write the show from a bad perspective, um, and get the full picture. And so that's really one of my big issues with the show is that it seems like they hate Jedi. The writers of the show do not like Jedi. And I kind of dislike that in the fact that they are the good guys. Unequivocally, they are the good guys. This is a good versus evil, light side versus dark side. It is not a you can use whatever you want, and depending on your truth or your point of view, you're the right one. That's not correct. There is a right, there is a wrong, and I really have a distaste for, well, if you look at it from this point of view, actually they're wrong. And that's just not the case. I don't like that writing. I don't like that style. And that's not really how Star Wars has been. Star Wars has always been good versus evil. That is why it's appealing because that is the challenge. And then my biggest complaint is with the creation of life through the Force, with the twins. I have a massive problem with this. I think it takes away everything special with Anakin. I think it lessens that entire story. I think it is completely side portions of this. I don't understand what they were thinking and who signed off on the creation of life through the Force outside of the one prophecy given through Anakin, or the fulfilled by Anakin. I do not like that. I think that is incredibly a misstep, a bad direction point. I don't think they were actually thinking through the ripple effect and consequences of force created life from just that moment, creating a force diode of twins that were created in a all female witch commune. Oh man, it just is. It is not a good look for Star Wars. It is not a good look for lore. It is not a good look for the show. It's bad writing, and even within the twins, there's a lot of other things. I'm gonna take a break on my review and kind of let you take a chime in, and then we'll kind of dive a little deeper into it.
Well, I want to start off like what give me some examples of what is really bothering you about how the Jedi are being portrayed. Like what is an instance where you feel like they really dove into the Jedi are the bad people here?
Well, so immediately the witches say it's not about good or bad, it's about power and who can use it. That's displaying that the Jedi aren't good and that they are just the ones who have the power. That line in and of itself depicts the entire way that the Jedi are shown. The Jedi are being hunted down for mistakes that they made and didn't reconcile, apparently. And that was shown through the guy drinking poison. I'm trying to think of his name. Who drank
Corbin.
the poison? Torben. Torben drank the poison, which means he didn't reconcile his issues. He didn't deal with it. And he did do something wrong, or else he wouldn't be in that state. So I'm sure we're going to see what they did wrong. And then they automatically have a bad view of the Jedi already. At this point, the Jedi should have been fully warmed and welcomed. And also, the Jedi don't just go around stealing children. The children that are tested and force sensitive, they get the choice to go. It's not like they have to go. Like, there is a choice for them to go. They didn't just go around stealing children away from their families. This was they were offered the choice to go and they didn't have to do that. So that portrayal that they're just this group of force wielders who are suppressing other powers and stealing children out of their homes and raising them to be in their um, little police sect of force users. They're not really even using like them as a peacekeepers. They're using them as force suppressors. Currently, is how they're being shown, and that's not the way that this really was supposed to go in my envision of Star Wars. And obviously, I'm not a creator of Star Wars. But that's kind of how I feel that they've been portrayed poorly so far. And I really would like to see them. I was excited to see them at their height in a good light, and I just haven't seen that at all.
So starting with like you feel like saying that whoever is the most powerful, the wielding of the power thing. I don't necessarily see that as a problem because I'm looking at this as this was through the witch's point of view, right? The Sith would kind of have that same theory. I think that why I don't mind it so much, and I still don't even think that the Jedi have really been shown in a poor light. And I've seen a lot of people say, "Oh, the Jedi are being depicted as evil and all that stuff." I have not seen it as that way, mostly because I feel like this is through the point of view of someone that doesn't like the Jedi, and I think that's perfectly fine in a universe with Star Wars that is as big as it is, as expansive it is. There's going to be people that, even if the Jedi are doing right, there are going to be people that disagree with that. I mean, we see that in everyday life, just in real world scenarios. So I think that's why I haven't had such an issue of the way they are showing the Jedis, because this show has been heavily dictated on showing stuff through certain people's point of view. It's not been an overall point of view. We saw the witch's point of view. We've seen multiple times now where we see May's point of view or we see Osha's point of view on things. And so that's why I don't really have a problem with them showing the Jedi, as these villains, in quotation marks, because that's how the witches see them. That's how the Sith would see them. So that's where I'm at with that. I really haven't had a problem with the depiction of the Jedi because we can kind of see that, they are trying to do the right thing. And I think that's heavily shown by what Soul is being. Soul is that voice of reason for the Jedi, the one trying to do the right things. So I think even though people say, oh, the Jedi are being depicted as evil, you can't really say anything Soul has done has been bad, no matter how they spin things. So I think that's been a good, way of showing it through a point of view. Moving on to like the, so-called stealing of the kids, they did give them the option. I mean, May didn't want to go and they didn't force her to. They weren't going to force her to. Osha did willingly say she wanted to be a Jedi multiple times in the episode. So I've also seen that complaint of people saying, oh, Jedi wouldn't steal children. I mean, they didn't. They literally were giving them the option if they wanted to. They asked them, do you want to be a Jedi? May said no, Osha said yes, and we see how that all unfolded. So again, I don't really, those complaints that I've been seeing and some of the ones that you're also feeling, I just don't see where that's coming from because I don't see the way they are giving it to us at all in those ways.
Yeah, I think it's just the inherent already view of the Jedi that they have. That the people in this universe have that view of the Jedi. Why would they have that view of the Jedi if it's not being portrayed in the universe?
Well,
Like,
I mean,
and I know you said that
else?
Sith users would. Why does even this one cult have that view of the Jedi?
Well, it goes back to power. They do feel, whether it's justified or not, that the Jedi are just in control because they found a way to maximize their power and just suppress people. And that's really the only other view we've seen. We haven't really seen the common consensus of just regular civilians and stuff. So I think it does make perfect sense that this cult, this coven of witches, disagrees with the Jedi. I mean, they have different beliefs. Obviously, they are we've seen many signs dictating that they have very much similar Sith beliefs. So I think they've done a really good job personally in showing that. I think they've done a really good job of saying, like, other people might agree with the Jedi. We see that throughout all of Star Wars, but there's always going to be some people that no matter how good the Jedi do, they're going to find fault with them. This era of the Jedi, we talked about how obviously they couldn't come to terms with what they did with Torben being the one to drink the poison. some people might just not be as strong-minded as others. Maybe Torben ends up being, we're going to see more of him, I'm sure. Maybe he battles with some things that we haven't seen yet, and maybe that's why he hasn't been able to reconcile what he did, or maybe he does really feel like he did something wrong, and it's just the era of which we're in. He can't really just forgive himself and move on. So personally, for me, I like that we've kind of seen a different side of things. Not that we're just seeing that the Jedi are for sure right. And I know you said you don't like that they're trying to force us to think the Jedi are wrong, but I think they're doing a really good job of showing that this is what this coven of witches and the Sith think of the Jedi, which is kind of what I was expecting from this show. I mean, the show is called The Acolyte. We are supposed to be seeing something Sith-oriented, against the Jedi. So I think they're doing a really good job with that so far.
So I think one of the issues I have is, and another one is I think the writing is poor, and I think you just said one of the key points from this show. You expected them to think the Jedi were bad, right? Like,
yes,
and that is correct. However, that should have been shown through action, not through already established feelings towards the Jedi.
See, I disagree with that because we already are complaining. There's been lots of complaints already that they're sick of dealing with. We got a whole flashback episode, essentially, right?
Correct.
People are already upset that we got a whole episode dedicated to a flashback, and unfortunately, we're probably going to get another one with the episode that comes out tomorrow at the time of us recording this. But we can't. We got 8 episodes, right? Would you rather have some flashback and kind of get the ideas of the main characters, or do you want to go down this deep dive of the coven witches, that already are dead, right? They died in the same episode they were introduced, except for maybe a couple of them that I'm sure we're going to see show back up. So I don't mind personally that we haven't got to see why they feel that way. I think they did a good job of just showing, people just disagree about certain things. Everyone's going to have their own opinions. Obviously, these witches have some force ability, and they just don't like the way that the Jedi use it as the way they use it. I've seen a lot of people complain also about how they don't really call it the Force and all that stuff. Again, whatever. This is a whole different. This is a coven of witches. They're not the Jedi. Obviously, I think we all agree it is the Force. I mean, that's what it is. But it just goes back to this, no one's always going to call stuff by the same name. Everyone's going to have their own opinions. And I think limiting Star Wars, especially Star Wars might have one of the biggest universes of any, IP, any franchise out there. I think it's really bad to put them in this bottle and say, oh, they can't, people can't disagree with the Jedi, or they can't call the Force different things. I think that's just kind of how it should be expected to be, personally.
Oh, and I don't care that they called it the Thread. That's fine, whatever. We know that the Dathomir sisters call it the Thread as well. That's fine. But, and so you kind of touched on my point. Like, we've already seen a flashback episode. This flashback episode should have been giving us the entire reason for May hating the Jedi. We should not have flashed back to May already hating the Jedi as a little child. Like, so again, this could have already done it. Like, if Osha then decides to go and she says yes, and during the struggle, May just can't comprehend it and then breaks and starts to hate Jedi, like, that would make an entirely different point of view for me, and I would understand that significantly more than her already having this predisposition of the Jedi are bad, because she had that feeling before the Jedi came on screen, before the Jedi entered. And even if the Jedi's actions were just, but May, a little child, could not understand it, and it was shown in the show that way, I would feel better about that than having a 8-year-old introduced, or 6, however old she is, I think she's 6, introduced as already hating the Jedi. I just feel like that would be better writing, especially for the timepiece in which we're going after.
See, this is another instance I'll have to disagree, because I think this is a perfect example of showing that what they're being taught is to hate the Jedi. They're not free thinkers. Osha is such a, that's why she stands out. That's why Sol was so interested in her, even compared to May. Osha was the one that came out when the Jedi showed up. May wasn't. May has been conditioned to only listen to what her mothers have told her to do. And unfortunately, she's not as strong-minded as Osha is. to, have her own opinions of stuff like that. So I kind of, again, I like that she was, that we have these two twins that both have different feelings about the same thing. I think that's a cool little touch that they're doing, showing that one person was heavily influenced by their teachings and the other was a little bit more of a free thinker.
Mm. Yeah, I just think it's bad writing on my
Is it?
part. I think I would rather be shown than told. And that's the key to cinema in my opinion is showing, not telling. And this show has done a lot of telling and not a bunch of showing. Um even with Osha under the tree, right? We open up, Osha's under a tree she's not supposed to be at, and she is holding this butterfly bug bird thing, and she holds it and lets it go. And then May shows up and does the exact same thing for slightly longer, and then Osha like immediately like flips out on her, like what she's doing is just the most atrocious thing she's ever seen, even though she was doing it 10 seconds earlier. Um it's just stuff like that. I'm not quite getting the writing. And maybe I'm too dense to understand what they're going for here. Um but it seems like it's just a bunch of they're already set in their ways and they're just going to be what they were going to be. May is the same person she is in the future as she was at the start of the show. She didn't get any more led to the dark side. She was just already there. Osha was already had the deep she wanted to be a Jedi. There was nothing that she saw of the Jedi. She'd never seen a Jedi before. She already wanted to be a Jedi. Like she could have seen the Jedi's acts as just in this episode, and that's what led her to want to be a Jedi. And May could have seen it from an opposite point of view, and we could have seen where the conflicts became that led these two twins down a path that was opposite of each other. Not they were already set on that path. I think that's just bad writing.
Yeah, see, that's where I disagree because like I said, I've already explained how I think it works. I think it just shows that one of them was more free-minded than the other. One of them has been told, heavily influenced by Mother Coral, you know, the Jedi are bad. Everything that you're going to be taught outside of what we teach you is bad. And I think that's you see that connection with her. May is much more heavily influenced by her. I think she listens to her more. Where you see Osha, who is a little more attached to Anasea. And Anasea was also willing to let Osha go to the Jedi. She wanted her to have her own beliefs and her own thoughts and those things. So I think that's where you're seeing that light versus evil fight that you're kind of wanting to see. I think it's right there on the screen, just in a very different way than we've ever seen it in Star Wars.
Yeah, I'm not seeing it, and that's fine. Maybe I'll get it down the road. But man, there was just even to the point of passing her force. What do you think? How so? We touched on the portrayal of the Jedi, but how do you feel about them being created from the force?
So again, this is another one of those things. I don't necessarily like that they've gone down this rabbit hole because it could get exponentially worse than it is currently. I've seen a lot of people say that this damages Anakin Skywalker's legacy. I completely, that's something I still completely disagree with because again, we're putting Star Wars in a bottle that, obviously people are going to have experimented with these things before. Obviously people are going to have tried to create Force. I mean, a big talking point has been how Darth Plagueis was dedicating his life to try to figure out how to make Force-sensitive people. I think that, he just came up with the idea and stuff like that. I think it's a good way to think of it as he got the idea from the story that he had heard that these witches were able to conceive these two children through the Force. And again, going back to the thing of damaging Anakin Skywalker's legacy, these witches used dark magic on the Force and, used it in a way to create them where Anakin was potentially created as a response to what the Sith were trying to do. I think that's where you see the Force always kind of having its balance, always intervening when it needs to. So that's where I haven't had as big of an issue with it, is because Anakin was truly by the Force himself. Whereas these witches had to use dark magic and things like that to, manipulate the Force and bend it to their will. So that's where I haven't had as big of an issue with it as a lot of people have. I still don't necessarily like that they've opened up this can of worms because it could get way worse. We could start seeing other people just having kids, by the Force and not using, I don't really like the idea of it, but I'm also not as upset about it. Obviously, the planet they're on could be very similar, very strong in the Force. I definitely think these two moons that we see that they made a huge emphasis to show many times throughout the episode. I think they could have some force binding abilities, which again would be no different than stuff we've seen in Star Wars. I mean, currently where we see Ahsoka and Sabine right now, they're on a planet that is very heavily connected to the Force. So things are going to work differently on these type of planets that have this stronger Force presence. And if this just so happens to be one of those planets, I really don't mind that they were able to do that.
Man, I'm surprised. I'm surprised with how much you love Star Wars that you're just okay with that. That you see the potential issues, but it's fine. I honestly,
Because
I
I don't,
think the
again,
prophecy. Okay, go
I
ahead.
don't think it diminishes the prophecy at all. I think I just explained how it doesn't. Now it could, if they continue to mess with it and continue to push some things,
I just
it
think you
definitely could
saying
get
that
to that
it's
point.
dark magic force doesn't change the fact that it was conceived by the Force. How like that's still the Force. Like they
I mean, we could
still
see, like I said, I mean, multiple planets have stronger ties to the Force. Things out of the ordinary happen on other planets with the Force. So that's why I really don't have as big of an issue with it. Again, it kind of goes back to the putting Star Wars in a bottle. You can't expect that these things haven't happened before and stuff like that. And I think what makes Anakin special is it was the Force itself that caused it. You know, obviously these two girls, these twins, they were manipulated by the Force. So that's where I see the difference there.
but I mean, there's a big theory out there that it wasn't just the Force, that it was Darth Plagueis that
Well,
manipulated the Force to actually have Anakin,
but
and that this was
well,
the response.
that theory, people also don't know the full side of that theory. Is it wasn't necessarily Plagueis trying to do that. He tried to, but because he was doing it and doing it in an ill manner, the Force rebounded in a way and created Anakin supposed to be as like the opposite of what he was trying to do. So that's
Right.
kind of what that theory is based around. So again, the Force is still the person that did it in a response to what the Sith were trying to do.
So these witches are more powerful than Darth Plagueis.
I mean, I don't think it's I don't know why that would be so difficult to necessarily understand. I mean, Plagueis was strong, but I mean, we can't say that, you know, people we see stuff power changes all the time in Star Wars now. So to expect anything different, I think would be, you know, naive. I think this is something we probably can expect to see multiple times. I mean, we already see Rey being one of the most powerful Jedi. So whether you agree with it or not, it's just something that's happening. So I don't necessarily mind it as much as I used to. I've been a lot more open minded about it. So again, I really don't see a big issue with that. I mean, obviously, Plagueis wasn't the strongest Sith there's ever been. There were Sith before him that were stronger. There's been Sith after him that were stronger. So again, I don't
Yeah.
necessarily have a problem with that.
Wow. Well, I'm glad. I'm glad that you don't. And yeah, that's just a big problem for me. I just, man, it just seems. And I understand what you're saying. I just completely disagree myself. I think that it should be special. That births without a male and a female should only be divine intervention, and that is kind of, you know, we're showing that is just, oh man, the Force can
Well, I
just be manipulated to create life. Seems crazy to me. To just that's just something that we can go around doing.
Well, I don't think it's going to be one of those things that, again, it could become common, and that's what I think they need to be careful of, is not allowing it to just become a thing that becomes common. But as of right now, using the Force in that way, it's not really a big surprise to me. I'm kind of surprised we haven't gotten something like that before now. You know, so I'm going to trust what they're doing. Dave Filoni has signed off on all of this stuff, and I think Dave Filoni knows a lot about what he's doing with Star Wars. He was the one that agreed to have this stuff happen. I wouldn't be surprised if we start to see something similar to that in the Ahsoka series. You know, being on this other Force-sensitive planet like they're on, the Force starting to interact in ways that it hasn't previously. So I'm just going to let them do what they're doing. Again, I think it could have some repercussions. I've already voiced that opinion. But as of right now, I'm not as tore up about it as a lot of Star Wars fans are.
Yeah. Well, clearly, I know the community is very much upset about it. How did you feel about the fire scene? Do you feel good
Uh,
about that one?
no, that's one of those things. I think this happens in movies too often. You know, obviously fire shouldn't be spreading like that through brick and stuff like that. And I also don't like the way that it was started, just this little fire for burning this book. I think that was probably my biggest problem with the episode, is that whole, you know, chain of events that happened.
Yeah.
We've seen previously Soul use the Force to save Osha from falling off of a cliff, but this time he couldn't use the Force to save her and May. So those are kind of the issues that I was having more so, is them being inconsistent in how they're allowing the Jedi to use the Force and the ways they're allowing them to do that. Those are the issues that I'm having with the show. That's where I think the writing has kind of strayed a little bit. And obviously having the fire spread through, stone and stuff like that makes zero sense. But that's the issues that I had personally more so with the show than a lot of the other things.
Yeah, the fire spreading through stone is, I feel like it's stupid, but I don't have a tremendous issue with that, because I don't know what the binding nature of the stone is. I don't know what
Yeah,
their
yeah.
mortar they use. There could be an explanation, and that's as long as there can be. But like even like when the reactor blew up, like they didn't show that bridge splitting. Like it's just
So
split there, like dude, and then they're standing on opposite ends. It's just I don't know, man.
so
It's not good visual.
I think the reactor splitting, I think that's something we're going to see in a future episode. I rewatched that ending part of the episode because someone said they were trying to see which witches had died or not. The only one we don't see on the ground there is Mother Quarrel. So I think she is the one that went and overloaded the reactor. Again, if you do rewatch that episode, you can also hear all the witches die at the same time. So I think she is the one. She is the cause for the killing of the witches. I would be very surprised if she doesn't end up being the Sith that we've seen in episode 1. I definitely think that's the direction they're heading. I think they've given a lot of hints to that, is with the horns like she has, like Darth Maul. So I think those are the hints that they're giving us, and that's my running theory currently with what the reactor exploding was and stuff like that. I think that is something we will see in a future episode.
So you think Coral is the Sith Lord?
Yes. Well, not necessarily the Sith Lord, because the rule of two, there's always two. Technically, we would have only seen one. I don't think May is a Sith. I think she is an
Correct.
acolyte.
And
So
she's trying to become an
she
acolyte.
she is trying to become one. So I do think there is another one. I don't necessarily know that we'll see them. Again, another running theory that I have is it is Darth Plagueis that is the other Sith, and I think that would be a really cool tie-in. Is if he was trying to learn from Mother Quarrel how they, made these Force-sensitive children, how they were used in the Force to manipulate it. Do I think that's going to happen? No, because I think that's too smart. But I think that could be a really good idea. Is a way to tie everything back together.
A lot of people are thinking that Quimir might be the other Sith.
See, I've seen that theory. I don't necessarily like it could be. I think I just like my theory better. So I
Oh no
hope
no
my
no!
theory is wrong.
He could be the second
The
in the
second one,
rule of two. Yeah,
yeah.
Kuril and
I don't know. I think it. I feel like we've been shown that probably more than my theory. My Darth Plagueis theory is a long shot. So that's probably more realistic to happen.
I had
I
somebody
don't
say
know
that he
though.
was Darth Plagueis.
Oh, that would be cool if they tie it in all through that. As long as Darth Plagueis gets involved in this, I think that turns the whole show around for a lot of fans. Because how else would he have wanted? How would he have gotten as close as he did to getting a Force sensitive child through the Force? He'd have been learning from people that did it already. Now, like you said, you want to be shown those things of how they did it, how they were strong on the Force and stuff like that. That's something I don't think we'll be seeing. But again, I think if they tie all this into Plagueis, I think a lot of these people that have hated on the show, I think they'll kind of turn back a little bit. There will be things they still disagree with, but I think that would be a really good way for them to win some of the fans back. Obviously, if they haven't done that already, it's not going to happen because they can't change it now. But I do think that would help a lot of people's opinions on the show.
Yeah. How do you think the women, all the witches, just died there in a pile? What do you think
Well,
happened there?
that's what I think was with the reactor overloading. That's where I think Mother Coral did it. I think she, used the Force, or it's hard to tell exactly how. But if you hear the reactor explode at about the same time that you hear them all scream. So I think they were all together, and that's what happened. I think she may have had them all together. She might have got them all to be in this one spot at this one time, so she could pull off her master plan of killing them all. Because we see again, that's one of the things they've showed a lot in the show is how her and Anastasia disagreed about a lot of things. So that's personally how I think they all died right there. Maybe the reactor exploding was just to suppress some sound. Maybe she does kill them with a lightsaber or something. Maybe she's already dedicated to the Sith life. It's just something we haven't got to see yet. So I definitely think she is responsible for that. I think that's why they all died in one spot, is because she didn't want to be running around trying to kill them all. I wonder if she called them all to come to this spot so they could try to stop the reactor from exploding, and then it was ultimately just a way to get them all in one, like all together, so she could cause them to die from the explosion.
Speaking of lightsabers, how did you feel about Soul handing his lightsaber to a complete stranger child?
Again, this is one of those things I've seen people complain about. I don't see fault with it because he's got three other Jedi behind him. I think he knows that if he needs to, he can take it away from this kid. I don't think that is a problem, and I think it was something she was definitely interested in. I would be hard pressed. If I was a Jedi and there was this kid that I'm interested in, you can tell has some Force ability. You think the lightsaber is cool here? You can hold it. You can see what it feels like and stuff like that. I didn't mind that at all.
I would equate it to walking up to a police officer, them unholstering their loaded gun and giving it to a child.
Again,
Like,
this is one of those things trying to make Star Wars like our real world stuff. I think
it's
it's kind of hard.
significantly worse. It's significantly worse.
I
They
know,
could turn it. They could turn it on accidentally by pushing a button and literally shove a lightsaber through their face, like in an instant. Like, it
Yeah,
is
I
significantly
think that
worse than handing someone a gun.
See, I think this is one of those major people trying to find stuff to hate. Personally, I don't think this is an issue. I think they've done a really good job of kind of showing Soul was, I don't think we're obviously going to ever see this connection because it's just too far in the future. But I think Soul is a really good representation of what Qui-Gon Jinn was. I think that's something Qui-Gon would do, if he sees a Jedi that's really interested in it. I think Qui-Gon might have been a little more, not necessarily willing to do that. But that's the correlation I've made a lot of times throughout this show is Qui-Gon Jinn and Soul. Again, I don't have a fault with it. I think this is one of those super nitpicky things. It's kind of like I more equate it to something like a sword. You see in movies all the time, medieval movies, a kid holding a sword and swinging it around a little bit. I think it's kind of similar to that. So that's, again, one of those things.
Yes, but it is not a sword. And I
a
think that's
lightsaber
one
is
of
a
the
space sword. That's literally what
yes,
it is.
yes, but a space sword is significantly different. It is
I
a
get what you're
beam of
saying, but
like
I
it
think
is
this is a
significantly more dangerous.
this is a major nitpick. I think I don't see any
I,
fault with this one.
you don't see any fault in this.
No, I think he had the situation under control. I mean, we've seen how
Sure.
good he is on his feet against May, literally just an episode before.
Oh, I
I'm sure
don't.
he was watching it.
My issue is not that he is in danger. It is that
No,
that
that she
she
put
is in
her in
danger.
danger. Yeah, again, that's what I think he's watching it. I don't have a problem with it.
Okay. Oh, well, good.
I think it is funny though. I think it is funny that you have such a problem with like that. Like, I think that's the nitpicky stuff that I feel like
But
this show is getting absolutely hammered with.
but that just is another issue of bad writing, in my opinion.
See, I just don't
That's
see
just
that as an issue.
like, even if he kept his hand on it as he let her hold it, that's different. Like, it's
I
just
don't
different.
think, I don't think this is like, again, this is one of those things. I've been surprised to see as many people upset about something like that because I just think it's a non-issue. But it is funny to hear someone else's opinions and like how they are so heavily affected by that, like that idea of that happening. I don't know. I just don't think it's an issue.
Yeah, man, I was okay with episode 1 and 2. I said it was at around a 6. But man, there was not much in episode 3 that I liked. Like, I honestly, I was trying to find positives for it, and I just couldn't really find any. And maybe that's because I don't know. I felt like they were just completely and totally trying to show the opposite of what I care about for Star Wars. But man, I don't
Well,
know.
I think there's still a lot of expectations that a lot of people had for this show that haven't been met yet. And again, we're only on episode 3, so I find it really hard to just hammer the show with things that, haven't really let the story develop yet. I mean, 3 episodes out of 8, we're not even halfway through it yet. A lot can happen in 5 more episodes. So I just don't think it's fair to really judge the entirety of the show yet. I think if we get to episode 6 or 7, and you still have these same feelings, then I think that's more warranted. But I just think after 3 episodes, we got a lot of backstory in episode 3, at least in my opinion. We saw a lot of things. We got to see them as children. We got to see the fire, which is literally something that you said you wanted to see. So we
I
literally got
did.
to see how that was started. I think this episode answered a lot of questions that a lot of people have, but they've just let a lot of these other little non-issues, in my opinion, really kind of drive their feeling of that episode.
Yeah. Oh man. It just it took a whole episode to show the end of it, and I just felt like they didn't do any character development in my opinion. And I know a lot of people would differ. There are a lot of people out there, but I just think this is bad writing. Um but we've already touched on it. So man, episode 4 tomorrow. We'll see how it progresses. We'll see how the acolyte continues. I'm not gonna stop watching it. I'll tell you that. I'll finish it out no matter what. No matter
well,
what. But
Well, let's get into some prediction stuff. We obviously both think we're going to get another flashback episode. I was thinking about that today a little bit when I was thinking about some things we might say in our predictions and stuff. I think we're going to see May's side of this a little bit more, which again, it might help you a little bit because you might get to see her reasons for not agreeing with the Jedi and stuff. I don't necessarily know though that we need to see May's side. I think they did actually a pretty good job of showing her and Osha pretty evenly as they've done for the rest of the episodes. I do still think we are going to get a flashback episode, but I don't necessarily know that it's going to be through May's point of view. Do you think that's the path they're going to go down, or do you think we get something a little different?
yeah, no, we're definitely gonna get another one. This is unfortunately this episode again is not the story. I wanted a flashback. I didn't want an entire episode. And after this episode, we know we're gonna get another one. Um it's unfortunate in my opinion that we could not give multiple point of views in one episode if we take the entire episode, and which we did. This is not the story they chose to tell. They are telling the other story. They are telling the acolyte becoming the acolyte. And and I understand that this is the origins of the story, and then 10 years later the actual story happens, but they I hope they don't take another full episode to tell May's point of view, but I'm worried they're going to. Um, my prediction is that they do give an entire another story episode back to this episode, and we see it from the other point of view. Um, unfortunately, I don't think that's warranted. Like you said, they clearly show. I guess they showed it from both point of views, but really, they could have done this from both point of views and one singular episode and set the entire stage for the future events, and we would have what's going forward. They took way too long to tell the story. They
See,
took way too long.
I think this next episode is going to start where the last episode ended. I think it's still going to be in that flashback period, but I don't think we're going to get to see the same stuff again. I think we're going to pick up with May at the tree, because we clearly see at the very end of the episode, May is at the tree waiting on Osha, because she says that's always where she goes to look for Osha whenever Osha's missing. They got separated. I think that's part of the reason why she was so surprised to see that Osha was still alive in episode 2, is because I think she thought she died when they fell. And I think that's why they maybe potentially thought they were going to meet back up at the tree. So I think that's where we're going to start. I think we're going to get to see Mother Coral maybe come and get May and kind of start training her down this path of being a Sith. That's what I'm hoping we see, because I actually think that would be good for the story, is letting us see if Mother Coral is the Sith. Maybe we won't get to that quite yet. But I do think it'd be good if we got that part of the flashback rather than just, a rewind just from a different point of view of the previous one.
Yeah. I would hope that we continue the story, if nothing else. I want to go back to present day of the story that they told. I don't want to spend any more time with these actors at this age.
I won't. That's been another criticism I think we could both touch on and agree with. I think unfortunately they are kids, but the kid acting was not very good in this episode at all. And I think that was another reason why people had such a big issue with it. Is kind of was hard to watch through some of those scenes. So I agree with you. I hope we don't get a whole lot more of it. But I hate saying that for the kids' sake, because they're just kids. They're probably their first time ever acting in anything. But unfortunately, that's just how it went.
Yeah, and props to them for even getting the role and doing it. That's I'm not saying that they're the worst actors. I just don't think that they've been given a lot of direction on how to do it.
Yeah.
personally. I just don't think that our director knows how to work with children and get the most out of them. I've seen, uh, but that's just me.
Well, and
Um,
I would also agree with that the acting, which is something we had both hoped would get better, it hasn't. I don't think the acting has gotten any better at all. And that's also something you can put on the director as well, because they need to put people in positions to act the right way. Because I think we know we have some good actors in this show. It's not a lack of skill. I think that's just kind of the direction of the show that they've gone and not doing a really good job directing it. So that's been another complaint that I've had, is the acting hasn't gotten much better. Um, so hopefully, we still got 5 episodes to go. Hopefully they can turn it around a little bit. But I think 3 episodes in and the acting hasn't gotten any better. I think that's kind of indicative of what we're probably going to get for the rest of the series.
yeah, I would agree. Now you touched on. I wanted to come back to the seeing it from different point of views. So this director has stated several times that she is pulling from Rashomon, which is a 1950s Japanese samurai movie about the killing of a bride, and it's given from three different perspectives,
Mm-hmm.
the same event. So I would say she's going to give the same perspective.
Yeah,
She said that
yeah.
in an interview before. I She seems to be trying to imitate other directors. She said it in a few other times that the first episode tried to match Breaking Bad's opening episode, and
Which I think is another fault with hers. Like, don't try to compare yourself to these legendary things that we've gotten already. Try to let it be your own thing. I don't think it's bad to use some, ideas and stuff that directors in the past have had and some really good actors. I think that's fine. I think you should always use, some of those greats, some of their ideas that they've had. But sometimes it's better just to not say it at all, so people aren't comparing it to those great things.
well, yeah, exactly. First off, you start the comparisons, and also you have to know how to execute. Like, what
Yeah,
made that worth telling? What made it? Why was that so impactful? The scene wasn't just impactful because somebody died. Like, the scene was just over. Like, it's in just an incredible setting of a scene, not just like, oh, the big character died. Um, so I don't know. I personally wish that she would stop saying what she's pulling
right.
her inspiration from, so that I personally don't have these bad tastes in my mouth. Because then it feels like you're just regurgitating great people's work without being able to do it yourself.
Yeah.
But that's my problem, not hers.
Yeah, I think that hits it right on the head. You just don't say it. You can do it all you want. You can try to imitate them. Just don't say it, because you're asking, if it's not amazing, if it's not perfect, you're asking for the criticism. So
Oh,
the
absolutely.
criticisms aren't unwarranted, because she has definitely done it to herself. But it'll be fun to see. I'm sure episode 4 will come out, and we'll get another quote of which one this one was supposed to be built after. So that could be maybe our new thing we do on the podcast, is trying to predict which director she's going to copy for the next episode.
Quentin Tarantino will be next. There will just be
Right?
Jedi blood everywhere.
Yep. And then Michael Bay in episode 5, and it'll just be explosions.
Oh man, but yeah, no, it's definitely, we'll definitely see what we got coming. I think we got another flashback. You think we have a continuation of the flashback?
Oh no,
I
I think it's going to be what you said. I'm just hoping that it's
Okay,
just a continuation. I
okay,
definitely think, because I think one of the big things that kind of hints at that is the titles that we've gotten for previous episodes have always been, 2 titles. We'll see something slash something. This is the first episode that we just got one. I expect the second one to be the opposite of whatever episode 3 title was, like they've done for the other 2 episodes, and it'll just be a flashback. I don't think it'll be
what's the
like picture
opposite of
perfect.
destiny?
I don't know. Whatever that word is, let me look. I'll look real quick. What
Okay, yeah,
is
that's your
what is
prediction.
the opposite? That is going to be, that's a new. So we're going to pick what director she's going to use for the next episode, and then we're also going to try to decide what the next episode's name will be. So this says it is autonomy, choice, liberty, or free will. So I could see liberty. I think liberty kind of fits really well with the direction of this show, but we'll see what happens.
Liberty. Okay, she's pulling the thread, so she's got her liberty.
Yeah, she's got some freedom there.
Okay. Okay, so your prediction is liberty,
Yeah, I'm gonna go with
and
liberty. What do you got? You got autonomy, autonomy? Yeah, that or free will.
oh man, who knows? Ugh, I don't know. We'll
That'll be our.
see. Maybe
That,
maybe maybe
we could start a poll on Instagram from now on. What's the next episode of the Acolyte going to be called?
maybe Fortune. Maybe Fortune,
Fortune.
yeah.
Yeah, we could see. We could see. I would be surprised, but I don't think
Anyway,
I'd be
okay.
surprised at a lot of stuff at this point.
Maybe choice. Maybe it's just choice.
Just choice.
Oh man.
Oh,
Oh goodness. Well, the last thing I want to touch on, I know we're going a little over our short time we have today, but I did want to touch on that the Daredevil got some exciting news for your box office prediction, and that is that the China box office just approved it to be released on the exact same day as the US premiere, July 26th, which is massive for the box office on Deadpool. And they already are predicting that it is going to be their modest estimation is that they're going to have $275,000 US domestic opening for Deadpool and
you mean
Wolverine.
million?
Yeah, 200 million. 200
Yeah.
in
If it only gets 275,000, we're in trouble.
yeah, we're in
The
big
MCU
trouble.
is shutting down.
We're dead. It's dead. It's over.
The
It's
MCU is
gone.
shutting down. No, I think this is good news. I always like when we just get more stuff on more screens. I haven't got a chance to watch it, but this is kind of similar to the Godzilla phenomenon of a movie that we just had. It was cool when it finally got brought over to the US and all that stuff. So I think this is really good for Deadpool and Wolverine. Obviously, more screens, more people to watch, more money. I think this I've been saying for a while that we're going to have $1 billion movie here. I think this helps my case significantly because that's a whole lot more people getting the opportunity to go and watch this in the theaters. So that's super exciting.
I would agree that this helps your case. I do think that this may get us closer to that billion mark. I still don't know. I'm gonna still hold out that we still have some people who will not buy all the tickets they would have, but the predictions are making it less likely. The box office predictions and estimations are looking very high for this movie.
Yeah. Which
Crazy
is good.
high.
I mean, Marvel needs that right now. I think that's really important. So I'm super excited for him. I think that's awesome.
It's their only movie coming out this year.
Yeah, that's a big. I mean, and do we even have another show? Or do we have one show later on? Don't we?
We have two. We're supposed to get Spider-Man Freshman Year is still supposed to be released this year, and then Agatha Coven of Chaos.
Okay, yeah. So this is important. We really want this to have a big opening. So I love this news. I know again we're running over our short time, which is I'm the one that wanted the short episode. But did you see the news about the CW Blade being spotted in one of the new Deadpool and Wolverine trailers?
The CW Blade? No,
yes,
I did not see that.
Yes, he is. I wish I should have sent that to you because I literally saw it like right before we got on here.
The CW Blade. I didn't even know the CW had a Blade.
Yes, apparently let me see if I can pull it up real quick. But yeah, I thought that was really interesting, especially with all we continue to hear more controversy about the Blade movie. So I think that's funny that they might just kind of be already looking to scrap it a little bit. Here, I'm shooting you a picture on Twitter right quick on X.
Okay.
And you can look at that real quick. But it looks like him, and I think it's the same actor as well that was, mentioned back then. So that could be a really fun storyline that we get to see. I think we've already kind of come to terms. This is going to be a very, very cameo-heavy movie. And it sounds like they're pulling out all the stops, getting some characters that we haven't seen in the MCU yet, which is really fun. So I think that could be also interesting. I think we're going to see a lot more of these type of leaks come out. But this one kind of really seemed to take in, the storm, taking the wind by the storm or whatever. A lot of people seem excited about this, which I think is pretty cool. So it would be definitely interesting to see if we get another character newly introduced into the MCU. We're already getting Wolverine. We get Blade, and I'm sure there might be some other ones. I know there's a lot of people that think the Fantastic Four will be in this movie. So I think it's going to be really fun.
Dude, when did this come out? Like, I didn't even know there was a Blade TV series.
I know it's I saw another picture that showed.
Holy cow, 2006.
Yep.
Man,
so,
this is crazy. Man, you're opening up an entire world to me. Who knew?
So I think that's pretty fun. It'll be interesting to see if that's actually who it is, or maybe it's just a random person in the background that they thought would be funny to throw in the same leather jacket.
That would be hilarious.
But I think it really could be. I think, with as much controversy and trouble as we've had out of the movie, I wouldn't be surprised to see them pivoting away from that and maybe going with another actor and a new storyline and all that stuff. So definitely something.
Apparently he's still on board. Wesley
Yeah,
Snipes.
he is still on, like, currently. So we will see.
This was played by Sticky Fingers. That's his name. Is Sticky Fingers.
Yeah,
That's his
there we
actor
go.
name.
There we go. Hopefully he makes a cameo in Deadpool and Wolverine and gets himself a nice paycheck, because it's probably been a little while.
Yeah, it's probably. Yeah, it doesn't seem like he's been turning out quality products here late. But
not at all. But I thought that
anyway,
was funny. So,
oh man, that's funny. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. That's hilarious, man. Who knows? We're getting all kinds of crazy people. I think it's gonna be pretty good. Pretty good.
Yep, I'm excited for it.
Man. 15% on Rotten Tomatoes for the Acolyte.
Yeah,
Crazy.
We'll see what happens. I'm holding out hope. I know a lot of people might be surprised. If you know me and you know how big of a Star Wars fan, I kind of have surprised myself with the thought process that I've had with it. But I'm trying to just enjoy it, take it as it comes.
Hey, I'm glad you are. I'm honestly,
I'm trying to be open-minded about it. So we'll see how bad that backfires and bites me in the butt here in a few weeks, when it really goes down the drain. But for now, we'll stay happy with it and keep moving forward.
We'll be happy with the Force diode created from nothing. But hey, we'll move on. Hey guys, thank you so much for sticking with us. It's been a blast. I've had a fun time. And hopefully I'll be more positive. I really dislike being negative. I'm not a negative person. I really want to be positive. I'm very happy that Jacob is able to bring the positivity this episode with his love of the Acolyte, giving it a 9 out of 10.
No, I'm still at my 7. I'm still at my 7. We're not putting words in my mouth yet. I'm still at a 7. I don't know that it can get to a 9 just purely based off the acting alone. I think 8 would be its top possibility. Unless they do some crazy stuff with Plagueis, and let's throw Darth Revan in there. Let's get crazy with it, man. Let's just have fun.
Hey, we might as well at this point. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But anyway,
7, everybody. Don't go out there and say this guy's got this show at a 9. No.
Hey, we like to jest, we like to have fun, but thanks for sticking around. Hey, if you enjoyed the show, you like the content, give us a review. It really helps the show a ton. More than anything else, leaving reviews on Apple Podcast, on Spotify, that helps the show tremendously, helps us get seen by more people. And send it around to people if you like it. If not,
give us constructive criticism. Let us know what you don't like, so we can maybe potentially make it a little bit better for you.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. But we appreciate you guys, and hope to catch y'all on the next one.